Okay, I think we can start. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to those councillors attending and to those members of the public who are listening to this meeting at the moment. This is a remote meeting of Lewes District Council's Cabinet. My name is Councillor James McCleary. I am leader of the council and I am Cabinet member responsible for regeneration and prosperity. At this point, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce my Cabinet colleagues. When introducing yourselves, could I ask that you could please confirm whether or not you have an interest to declare in any agenda item. For the record, I have no interest to declare myself on any items on today's agenda. So I'll do a roll call if that's okay with everybody. And if you could just introduce yourselves and, as I say, any declarations of interest. So I'll start with Councillor Bird.
Hello everyone, I'm Councillor Matthew Bird, Cabinet Member for Sustainability. I have no declarations of interest to declare.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Julie Carr and I'm the Cabinet Member responsible for waste, recycling and open spaces. And I have no interest to declare on the agenda this afternoon, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Chris Collier. I'm the Cabinet Member for People and Performance. And I've got no interest to declare on anything on the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Denis.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Councillor Johnny Denis. I'm the Cabinet Member for Customer and Communities, and I have nothing to declare on this afternoon's agenda.
Councillor Meyer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councillor William Meyer. I've got nothing to declare with regards to the items on the agenda today, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Housing.
Councillor Nicholson.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Councillor Zoe Nicholson. I'm Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets, and I have no interest to declare on any item on the agenda. Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Emily O'Brien. I'm the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, and I have no interest to declare.
And Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Ruth O'Keefe. I'm the Cabinet Member for Tourism and Devolution, and I've got no interest to declare on any items on the agenda today.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. And also, I'm going to go through now our visiting members, other members of the council who are present. I think we've just got one, unless I'm mistaken. Councillor Borman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Liz Borman. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee, and I've no declarations to declare on the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Borman. If any other members join us later on, then we'll get them to introduce themselves as they join the meeting. But unless I'm mistaken, no, I don't think we've got any others here with us at the moment. So thank you, councillors. Can I ask that everyone mute their microphones when they're not speaking? If you have any connectivity issues, as we know, with these meetings, haven't done them for a while now, it's sometimes helpful to turn off your camera when you're not speaking, but obviously if you can keep it on at all times if possible, that's very helpful. Can you state your name when you're speaking so it's clear to members of the public watching who is speaking, and yeah, make sure that's clear when you start your contributions. If any councillor wishes to speak during the items, please use the raise hand icon on Teams, so I can see you and I'll call you to speak in turn. So that takes us to the agenda. So item 1 on the agenda is the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of February 2021. Does anyone have any issues they'd like to raise on the minutes? No, and so can I take them as agreed then, please? Lovely, thank you, everybody. Item 2 is apologies. I've only received apologies from Councillor Miller, who is the chair of PPAC. Councillor Borman is attending in his stead. I don't think there are any other apologies at present from any other members. Thank you. Declaration of interest we've already dealt with. Item 4 is urgent items. We have none of those. Item 5 is public question time. We have no questions have been received. Item 6 is written questions from councillors, and we've not received any of those. And item 7 is matters referred to Cabinet for reconsideration by Cabinet, and there are none of those on today's agenda. So that brings us to item 8 on the agenda, which is the interim policy statement on housing delivery. And I'll hand over to Councillor O'Brien to introduce this item.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Emily O'Brien. I'm the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. I'd just like to thank officers who've worked really hard putting this paper together and this interim policy statement. And I'd also like to thank others who've been involved in it, in particular the councillors from the cross-party local plan steering group and people who've responded to the consultation exercise that took place, including town and parish councils. So the purpose of this statement is that after May, we have a clear guiding framework which stresses the value and the weight of our existing planning policies. And I would just flag one thing, which is it's important to note that this policy is only going to apply, or this statement rather, is only going to apply to the Lewes District Council Planning Authority area. So areas within the National Park, including Lewes Town, aren't subject to it. I think that's pretty much all I've got to say, but I'd be very happy to receive any questions on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. So I'll invite Councillor Borman. Would you like to add anything from the discussions that were had at the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Liz Borman. It's disappointing that the administration didn't feel that updating the local plan 1 was a priority when they took over administration and left it nearly 18 months to start on this, whereas we could be nearing completion of it now. So we have this housing delivery statement to go contend with, and PAC were absolutely happy to accept the recommendations for Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Borman. Hands up from any Cabinet members who'd like to add any contributions at this point. Councillor O'Brien, I saw you. I'll come back to you, Councillor O'Brien, to sum up at the end, if that's okay. Councillor Nicholson, got in there just in the nick of time. Go ahead.
Can I just, as a question really to our PPAC colleague about whether or not this was actually discussed and the tone at which Councillor Borman's just reported that was discussed at PPAC like that, because from my recollection there was no discussion at PPAC about this, and in fact what you're using this for, Councillor Borman, is more of a political stance that you're taking as opposed to your role as vice chair of the or deputy chair of PPAC. So that's one point. The second point is that as Councillor O'Brien has gone to great lengths to make sure that there is cross-party agreement over how we develop our local plan going forward, and it has been this administration's absolute priority from day one of taking over from yourselves in your role as a deputy leader of the Conservative group. And you know, we are all doing our level best across the parties to make sure that we implement what is an actually impossible task, because the government set a number of hoops for us, as you well know, a number of hoops for us to jump through in order to, you know, make sure that we can fulfill our obligations of the planning regulations and guidance. So it seems to me extraordinary that you would take that tone, given that you're part of the overall local plan steering group.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. I think that's a fair point, actually. I haven't actually seen the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee. Councillor Borman, can I just ask you for clarification, because the role here is obviously you're deputising for Councillor Miller, so it's really to report the discussions that were had at the meeting. Can I just ask if your comments were a reflection of what happened at the meeting, or is that a separate point you were making?
It was a separate point I was making, because everyone was happy to agree for it to go straight through.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Borman. Just a gentle reminder that the role of the meeting is really to report what happened at the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee. So that's fine. Just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. And obviously, as I'm sure you know, I've engaged very strongly with our local MP on this particular issue, and so you may want to talk to her about the fact that we're trying to work together on this particular issue as we go forward, rather than turning it into a political football, which I think is extremely unhelpful and unconstructive for residents. So do any other councillors have anything else they want to contribute on this particular item? Councillor O'Brien, sorry. Yes, of course you do.
Just to say, I think some of the points have been made already, but clearly I don't think that dealing with our local plan is a place for political posturing and trying to score political points. Clearly, this interim policy, as with the local plan process itself, has been subject to a great deal of scrutiny in a cross-party way. So Councillor Linnington, the leader of the Conservative Party, sits on the local plan steering group, which has been fully informed and engaged with this policy and agreed it. And it also sits on the PPAC, the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee, which actually chose not to call in and discuss this. The item was waved by. So I do think it's rather strange to be bringing this up here, but I would like to take the chance to reiterate how important this is as a cross-party issue and this administration's desire to work in a constructive and cross-party way around it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. In that case, if there are no other contributions from any other members of Cabinet, can I take the officer recommendations? Does anyone dissent from those recommendations, from agreeing to them? No. Okay. Thank you, everybody. In that case, the recommendations in the report are agreed. I'll move on to item 9, the planning enforcement policy document. Back to Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be bringing this paper to Cabinet. Sorry, I should say I'm Councillor Emily O'Brien, the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. Very pleased to set this before you today. Planning enforcement is just such a key issue for our residents, and I'm sure I'm not the only person whose correspondence is bulging with people's concerns about enforcement and how we do it and why and when we don't. It's really, really vital for people's lives, and it's something we take really seriously. So this is an opportunity to set that out. I think the most important thing to say is that the real point of this policy is that it's about clarity. So it's about residents knowing how we'll operate, what the approach is, and also how we'll communicate about that, which I think is really, really important factor as well, how we keep people informed. And it sets out generally how we'll take enforcement action, along with the limits on that, as well as our obligations about that, just so it's all kind of really clear in black and white what it means. I think that's pretty much all I've got to say, apart from, this is a really important issue. The aim of the policy is to give our communities confidence. It's really important people have confidence in the planning system and can trust it, and that is the aim of setting this out there. But I'd be really happy to take any questions on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Just before I come to Cabinet colleagues, Councillor Bourman, was there anything you wanted to add at this point?
Thank you, Chair. No, this wasn't discussed at the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee.
Fine. Thank you. Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'd really like to welcome this. It's really instructive because it's something that, as you say, it tops my mailbox about all the things that come in. This is the most prevalent, about enforcement of planning activities, and for many people, it's the clarity that they seek as to how is enforcement happen and what are the criteria and everything, and this sets that out. It's something that's always been a bit of a mystery, and I think this just having it out there in the public domain means it's transparent and we're clear about what we do. I think people would, on the whole, I think people will welcome this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Denny. Anyone else want to make a comment on this report? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just like to echo Councillor Julie Carr. Echo Councillor Denny's comments. I do get quite a lot of correspondence and emails from the public regarding issues around enforcement. So I think this is really clear statement, and I think if it's readily available on our website for the public to access, I think that will give a lot of clarity and reassurance, I think, to the public as well. So I absolutely welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. I suppose the only thing very quickly is just to thank Councillor O'Brien and the officers for bringing this forward to us. It's as Councillor Carr and Councillor Denny have pointed out, I think all councillors across the whole council will be welcoming this, as planning enforcement is a particularly emotive issue and one that residents have every right to expect to have confidence in, because the planning system hinges upon it. So thank you for bringing it forward. And Councillor O'Brien, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to reference, I should have done at the beginning, that this has obviously been to the planning committee, and to thank them for their contributions as well. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Brien. So in that case, I can't see any other hands. Draw colleagues' attention to the recommendation in the report. Does anyone dissent from agreeing that recommendation? No? Okay, wonderful. In that case, the recommendations are agreed. Thank you, everybody. That moves us on to item 10, which is investing in green energy initiatives. I'm going to ask Councillor Bird to introduce this item for us.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Matthew Bird, Cabinet Member for Sustainability. And yes, I'm going to introduce this, and then I'm going to hand over to Councillor Nicholson to finish. Just to say, I mean, I'm very excited about this report. It's an amazing initiative, and it's essentially we're delivering on what we said we'd deliver in our corporate plan and in our recent climate change sustainability strategy. So this is a really exciting and key example of our ambition to reach our net zero target 2030, and to not only reduce our council emissions, but to help the district reduce their emissions as well. So, I want to say thank you to the officers and to Avesco for all the engagement and conversation, discussion that it's taken to bring this proposal to Cabinet. It's the first step. This is setting the green light to come up with a viable and robust business proposal for the solar farm. And there are many steps along the way to reach that end point. So, including all the due diligence, all the checks, all the engagement, all the consultation with everyone. That is why we're working with the community energy sector, because they have a long experience of working with the communities on delivering viable schemes in Lewis District. So, this is exactly what we should be doing. So that's all I really want to say. Actually, I mean, it's a very exciting big step on our way to addressing the climate emergency.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Councillor Nicholson, did you want to come in now or after Councillor Borman has fed back from PPAC?
I'm happy to do it later. Thank you.
Right, in that case, I'll invite Councillor Borman then to feedback on the discussion had at the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee. Councillor Borman.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Liz Borman. There's lots of discussion on this, and we did find that we had a lot more questions left unanswered than what we had answered regarding the future proposals on this. So obviously due diligence does need to be done, and that's when a lot of these answers would have come back. So there was discussion on whether this should come back to the PPAC committee prior to it being agreed at Cabinet, but what we have asked and our recommendation to you is that in number 2, recommendation number 2 is that as well as the Deputy Chief Executive, Chief Finance Officer and the Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets, that is also in consultation with the Chair of the Policy and Performance Advisory Committee to make the final decision as to whether to provide the extra £100,000. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Borman. In that case, I'll bring Councillor Nicholson in now, please. And then after that, I'll open up to Cabinet members to comment generally. Councillor Nicholson.
Councillor Zoe Nicholson. Yeah, so just to give a bit of detail of the scheme itself. So as Matthew says, this is very exciting development for us. We really are doing what we said we would do in our corporate plan, which is, use our municipal power. I talk about this a lot, I guess, as the finance leader, using the public purse to ensure that we meet our net zero carbon target by 2030. We know that for us as a district, carbon emissions from buildings amount to, is it 36%, Matthew? Something like that. And therefore investing in solar energy and doing it in partnership with a community-owned organisation that has got so much depth of expertise in Avesco, an organisation that's over 15 years old, that we could do something really exciting in our own community, feels really, really positive, and especially in the context of the COVID-19 crisis that we find ourselves in and the economic crisis that will follow it. It's so important that we create greener jobs and jobs in the renewable sector, and this is a way in which us as a council can exercise that. So I have no trouble in us taking what is actually quite a bold step forward in this way. And actually, you know, I know that there are other local authorities who have done similar things, so we're not alone. But we are, you know, we are stepping forward into a place that I can understand why there might have been some discussion at PPAC about this. My understanding of the discussion was that, you know, it was broadly very supportive, because it's in line with the climate change scrutiny panel's objectives. It's also in line with our corporate plan, and it's also in line with our sustainability strategy. So, and we're taking cautious enough steps by putting in place both a feasibility study, which you would do for any big investment that we make, and also we're putting the due diligence in place that Councillor Borman refers to, and also we will ensure that before we move into the next stage, a full business case will come to Cabinet in July, at which point that's when our colleagues on Performance and Policy Committee will get to see and be able to comment on the next stage. So I don't feel that it's necessary for us to accept the recommendation. We, of course, can share for information the outcome, as we would anyway, as an open and transparent cabinet, the results of the feasibility study. But I don't think it's necessary for us to. We've got enough checks and balances in place, I feel, with the recommendation as it currently stands. So I'm really happy to recommend this to cabinet as it currently stands, and for us to be really excited about the prospects that it will bring for our community. And I'd like to thank Avesco for their readiness to work in partnership with us, and also our officers for getting us this far quite so quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. I'll open up to all Cabinet members now. If you wish to comment, please put your hands up. Councillor Denis, I'll start with you.
Councillor Denis, thank you, Chair. So this is a very exciting proposal, and what I find most welcoming about it is the way that it harnesses our community wealth building ideas at the same time as it's addressing climate change. And it's clear that the two things can go so perfectly hand in hand when we harness the skills of the community sector like this. They have a track record of working, much more in depth with the communities they serve. That'll bring a strength and a weight to anything that comes forward. And this seems like such a novel thing for a council to be doing, but perfectly arranged. I think it seems like a really good opportunity for us to do good by putting our capital where our mouth is. So I really would like to endorse this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Denis. Any other Cabinet members want to speak on this item? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Emily O'Brien, Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. Again, just to really welcome this approach, a very exciting time. I just was going to make the point how much I'd welcome the approach to community engagement set out. It's fantastic, as well as obviously there will be, for any solar installation, there would be a normal planning process would take place and the opportunity to engage through the planning system, which is really important for our communities to know. But I was also really pleased to see above and beyond that, this is a community organisation that is leading this, so an organisation which is really embedded within the community. And I was particularly pleased to see in the project timeline a really strong emphasis on involving and engaging local communities. So it's something that's done with local communities, not to local communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I can't see any other hands. I mean, all I'd say just to add to that is, obviously as kind of leader of the council, it's very, as Councillor Nicholson already pointed out, and Councillor Bird did as well, I think this is very much in line with our corporate priorities. And I think any organisation, when you look at what you've achieved so far, you tick them off against your corporate priorities. And of course, ours are building more council homes, which of course we're storming along with. The climate emergency, which this is yet another contribution to improving our services to residents, which are improving very rapidly, and supporting local businesses, which of course we are doing and we've reported on before extensively. So it's great to see yet another thing reinforcing our priorities and the promises that we've made to residents in the district. And I think it's great to see councils prepared to invest in projects like this that are going to bring such tangible benefits in the long term to the community. And I think that hopefully, Councillor Nicholson said that other councils have done this already. I hope that we'll see more councils able to carry out projects like this. And obviously, when we are underway with this, I'm sure that quite a lot of other councils will be looking at us as a case study of how to do this sort of thing, which I think is really exciting for the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this pans out, and I think all of us are excited to see what kind of effect this has, and we can also use it as a model ourselves. So hopefully more future projects like this that improve our renewable energy output in the district in this kind of community energy sense, which is so positive, as Councillor Denise said, from both a renewable energy perspective, but also from our community wealth building priorities. If nobody else has any other comments, I would say I commend the officer's recommendations to you. Does anyone dissent from agreeing those? Wonderful. In that case, that is agreed, and that is the last item on the agenda for today. So all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for joining us today for today's meeting. And I hereby close the meeting at 2:57 p.m. Thanks, everybody.